Good day viewers, you are welcome to Best Option Education Learning Scheme Limited. On this edition, we will learn how to bake a butter sponge cake and also how to decorate using the royal icing, the butter icing and the sugar paste, popularly referred to as fondant. But before we get started, we have to wash our hands and make sure the hands are clean. These are the basic ingredients that is needed for baking a basic butter sponge cake. You need flour, sugar, eggs, butter, baking powder, and flavoring essence of different types. We have the lemon flavor, the chocolate flavor, butterscotch flavor, and the rum flavor. Now the first step when you want to bake your cake is to make sure you measure accurately. Your measurements must be accurate for you to get the same result each time. For this particular butter sponge cake, we shall measure 500 grams of flour, 500 grams of butter, and 500 grams of sugar, and we'll use 10 eggs. 10 eggs. Right. Let's measure our flour. Make sure your flour, your measurement is accurate. We have 500 grams of flour. We will sift the flour. There are 3 reasons why we sift the flour when we bake our cakes. 1, the flour may be dirty, because there may be some dirt like weevils and things in this. You want to be sure you get rid of all the dirt. 2, you want to be sure there are no lumps in there. And 3, and the most important, is because you want to aerate the flour. You want air to pass into the flour. So we sift our flour. You want to help us to sift the flour? While she's doing that, we measure our baking powder. Because we're using 500 grams of flour, we need 2 level teaspoons of baking powder. Now to level your teaspoon of baking powder, you measure it in your spoon, heat, and you level using the tip of a knife or a spatula. And you sift with the flour. In a separate bowl, we measure our sugar. We measure 500 grams of sugar too. But sometimes people do not like too much sugar, so you may want to reduce, especially when you are baking for elderly people. So you can reduce to like 400 grams or 450 grams. In this case, I have decided to use 400 grams. But the normal measurement is 500 grams of butter, of sugar to 500 grams of flour. We have 400 grams of sugar. Now we're going to use the creaming method. What we refer to as the creaming method is combining the sugar and the butter and creaming until it is soft and fluffy. We want to incorporate enough air into the butter and sugar mixture. So we measure our butter too. Let's have our sugar in a separate bowl. And then we measure our butter. We also measure 500 grams of butter. 500 grams of okay. So we have 500 grams of butter. For the sake of viewers who may want to use this sachet butter that we sell around, 1 sachet is usually 250 grams. So you're going to use this measurement you want to use. You're going to use 2 sachets of that butter. Right, so turn our butter into a bowl. Yeah, for viewers who may not have a mixer at home, you could turn your butter and sugar into a bowl and mix with this wooden stick, that the one you normally use for your amala. You mix until it is fluffy and soft. But for people who have mixer at home, by the time you mix at high speed for 7 minutes, it should be airy enough. So in our case, we're going to use our mixer. So we pour the butter into the mixing bowl. And also the sugar. Now you pour in our butter and you put the sugar and the butter together. Ordinary, the sugar and butter should cream well in 7 minutes and 10 minutes. But because you have to stop the machine and light to rest, you use the machine like 5 minutes. For ordinary, 7 minutes, 10 minutes.
Ma'am, please, why do you use butter and sugar for without putting flour?
Anyway, just like I said at the beginning of the baking, I said that we need to incorporate egg into the mixture. So we can only combine the egg, the butter and the sugar to incorporate egg in it before we mix in all that ingredients. Now if you look at the butter and sugar mixture, you will see that it is pale, it is fluffy and it is creamy. So it is ready to be used for our baking. Once the sugar and the butter is ready, we now turn it over into a large bowl. We really love to wash the bowls while Tina would butter this pan, use a brush and butter it and sprinkle it with a little flour. We'll crack our egg. Now, remember, it's very important that when you want to crack your egg, you crack it one at a time. You crack and pour. You crack and pour. This is because sometimes the egg might be stale, might be spoiled. And if you just break everything into one bowl, the spoiled or the stale one will spoil every other one we have broken into the plate. So we want to break it one by one and crack and then pour into the plate. Okay. Today you'd like to break the eggs for us. For this particular one, we're going to use 10 eggs. 10 eggs. You crack egg and then you pour into the bowl. Okay. Pour into the bowl. Now, viewers at home, the reason why we have to butter this pan and sprinkle it with flour is so that at the end of our baking, the cake can come out neatly and beautiful, so that the cake will not stick to the pan. So that's why we have to butter it and sprinkle with a little flour. Some other people will cut in paper, parchment paper. It's called parchment paper. They will use it to line the thing after putting the butter. The reason is just that the cake will come out neatly and beautiful.
Ma, what is the quantity of the egg?
Yes, we used 10 eggs. And the reason is that our measurement of flour is 500 grams and butter 500 grams. Sugar, in this case, we used 400 grams. We reduced it purposely because of people who may not like too much sugar. But normally we should use 500 grams of sugar. Alright. So now we mix the egg a little. Mix the egg a little. And we pour in a little at a time, mixing with a little flour. The reason why we put a little flour when we are mixing is so that the mixture will not coagulate and to mix properly. So we add a little egg and use a handful of flour just to mix it. So now you want to have to mix properly. see that while you mix it in a motion form, round. Mix properly. So that the reason why we are mixing is so that the egg and the butter and sugar will combine properly. That's why we are using a little flour to create the combination. Good. Right. Let's have the egg. Little flour. While it's doing that, we add our flavoring essence. In this particular cake, for this particular cake, I am using the lemon flavoring and the butterscotch flavoring, and I'll use 1 cup each of both of the flavor. Right. After combining our eggs and the butter and the sugar, we now fold in the remaining flour. We use the cutting and the folding method. Cut and fold until all the mixture is well combined. We have already preheated our oven, and we'll just put in the mixture as we finish the mixing. You'll see that the flour is well combined with the sugar with the mixture. Right now it is ready for us to pour it into our baking pan. For this particular cake, we're using the rectangular pan, and it's 13 inches by 9 inches. 13 inches by 9 inches. Spread it out with your spoon. Make sure it is even so that the sides will not be higher than the other. It is ready to go into the preheated oven. The cake should come out in about 1 hour. It will be ready in about 1 hour. Viewers at home, these are our finished cake, and we have baked this in different pans and shapes and sizes. We have baked this two in a 10-inch round pan, while we baked this inside the rectangular pan. We have used the same mixture, the same basic butterscotch cake for the 3 different types of cakes. Like we said earlier on, we are going to make 3 types of icing: the butter icing, the royal icing, and the sugar paste, popularly called fondant icing. But we will start with the royal icing, and we will use this particular 10-inch round cake. So let's get started. Now we want to make the royal icing to decorate this 10-inch round cake, and these are the ingredients needed for the royal icing. We need confectioner sugar, popularly called icing sugar. We need egg white. We're going to remove only the egg white, the albumin, and then we need a little flavoring essence. Let's get started. Since we need only the egg white, we'll be careful to break the egg just a little tip. Be sure turning it so that the yolk does not get into the egg white.
Yes, now why are we using egg white?
Yes, this is supposed to be a pure white icing. It's supposed to be pure white, and we don't want the color. Then the egg white lasts longer and the egg yolk. If you put the egg yolk, it spoils easily, and we don't want the icing to spoil easily. So we use the egg white.
So what about the yolk?
We don't use the yolk. Right. Now after removing your egg white, you pour the egg white into the mixing bowl and you whisk for 1 minute. Just whisk the egg for 1 minute. It's foamy. Now you see that the egg white is foamy. We now mix our icing sugar. We sift the icing sugar and we mix with the egg white. And for the sake of viewers who may not have mixer in their homes, just like we said when we were baking the cakes, you can use your fork and whisk the egg properly before you mix the icing sugar. Titi, will you like to mix the icing sugar? Thank you. So we'll pour the egg white into a bowl. You can pour a little at a time, and we add the confectioner or icing sugar. And we'll mix until we get the right consistency. If you see that it is thick, you add more egg white. Properly. I've now mixed the icing, royal icing, into a medium consistency. This is good and okay.